running for a seat in the National Assembly is the heir to the country's main political dynasty. My guest is Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, son of Benazir Bhutto, twice Prime Minister of Pakistan, who was assassinated in 2007. He's chairman of the Pakistan People's Party, founded by his grandfather 50 years ago. The PPP has seen its popularity plummet in recent years. Can Bilawal Bhutto Zardari restore its fortunes and turn around a political legacy tarnished by allegations of corruption, patronage and incompetence? Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, welcome to Hard Talk.
Thanks for having me, Zainab.
Your grandfather was executed, your mother assassinated, you've received death threats. Why put yourself on the front line of politics like this?
Thank you very much, Zainab. You know, 3 days after my mother's assassination in December of 2007, the party Central Executive Committee decided that I was to be the co-chairman of the Pakistan People's Party.
Along with your father, Asif Ali Zardari.
Yes. Yeah. At that time, the country was in chaos. From Karachi to Kashmir, the people were rioting, the country was burning. And the party asked, and it wasn't exactly something that I could turn down. I stepped up and did what I have to do. My mother often said that she didn't choose this life, it chose her. And I believe the same applies to me. I'm committed to trying to complete my mother's incomplete mission for a peaceful, prosperous and democratic Pakistan.
Your mother was in self-imposed exile before she went back to Pakistan in 2007. I saw her a couple of months before she was assassinated, and I asked her, why go back to Pakistan when you've received these death threats? And she said to me, you know, Zainab, I feel that it is my duty, as you just said, to go back. She was very fatalistic about what might happen to her. Did she ever discuss the possibility that she might die with you and your two younger sisters?
I mean, obviously that's a very difficult conversation to have with anyone. I think everyone was aware of the risks. She would often say that you don't get to choose when you die. And we have faith, particularly from our religion, that it's written down. And she would often joke that I could die walking across the street in London as well. I think she believed in the cause that she was fighting for a democratic Pakistan, and she was warning our nation of the threats of extremism and terrorism. And at a time when all of Pakistan's politicians weren't speaking up, my mother spoke out, and she was a beacon of hope for the people of Pakistan.
But nevertheless, she was your mother, as well as this iconic political figure for many people. Did you feel any anger and resentment about what she did and the fact that you and your sisters ended up losing your mother?
No, absolutely. I was completely and utterly devastated. And even though I come from a family, my grandfather was assassinated, both my uncles were assassinated as a political party, our workers, various political leaders have been assassinated for the cause that they fight for. It was something that completely broke us. But rather than pursue a politics of hate and revenge, my mother has raised me differently. So as I said, 3 days after my mother's assassination, I was elected chairman, and instead of calling for revenge, instead of paying off the anger of the people of Pakistan, the supporters of the Pakistan People's Party, I said that democracy is the best revenge, and try to convert our grief into a cause. And we're working towards that sort of greater aim.
But it was a great shock. There you were, living in Dubai. You were brought up mostly in Dubai.
Actually, yeah.
Then went to...
I was at university. I was
Oxford
a freshman
University,
a freshman at Oxford University. I just completed my freshers' first term when this devastating news.
But how did you learn about her death?
We were actually in Dubai at the time.
Yeah.
My mother had recently had a conversation with my father and myself that my father had been in Dubai with us, and they decided to split the risks, and he would stay abroad and she would take the political risk. But given the increasing risk, we've taken a decision that he too was to come back. And we were literally having that conversation when the news appeared.
What was your last conversation with your mother?
Actually, I had discussed with her her voice. She'd been campaigning all across the country, and she's a very charismatic speaker. She spoke from the heart, and obviously after a really long campaign, actually her voice had gone away. It was sort of raspy and things. I'd said, okay, you have to have lemon and honey in your tea. And she was like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. That was the last conversation we had.
So you want to see justice over her death, because up until now, the only people who've been punished over her death are two policemen who were found guilty of cleaning the area where she'd been killed in Rawalpindi. Nobody in connection with her actual assassination.
Absolutely. It is a great travesty of justice. There was a very strong case that included a United Nations investigation report, Pakistan's own investigation, which included not only DNA results, DNA test evidence that placed the suicide bomber with his alleged accomplices. The terrorist himself was self-confessing, accused people that showed no remorse.
It was a 15-year-old boy who was found, his remains had blown her up, but it was those higher up that nobody knows.
The ones that we caught, though, the ones that the accomplices.
There were 5 who are in detention,
who were in detention and charged. They were acquitted. Mr. Musharraf, who was not there, instead of giving
You're talking about President Musharraf at the time.
Who was also accused and charged in this crime.
But you know, legal proceedings, I have to say, against Pervez Musharraf have stalled, and of course, whenever these allegations...
This is the same case where they let the terrorist off despite there being self-confessing accused, despite there being DNA evidence. It's the same case where they ignore Musharraf's plan. He's run away from the country. Instead of giving a decision against him, they said when he comes back, we'll decide what happens to him.
But whenever these allegations that he was involved in Benazir Bhutto's death, he laughs off these allegations and says no involvement whatsoever on his part. He does concede, however, that there were rogue elements in the deep state, in the deep establishment, who may have been colluding with elements of the Pakistan Taliban to assassinate your mother. Just want to put that straight.
No, that's what he claims. But the United Nations report states that her security was undermined. And Mr. Musharraf threatened my mother. That's also on record.
Well, he denies that. He denies that he had that conversation on the phone with her, threatening her.
They're not only witnesses. It's also been presented in court that he threatened my mother. She's on record. She told me, and I know she didn't like me.
But I would just say, on the record,
I know, but that's fair enough. Right. When he's here, he can defend himself. The fact of the matter is that he says no, as dictators and murderers often do. If it was the case, then why hasn't he come back to face the charges? Why is he running away from the court cases?
As you say,
and it's not only my mother's case where he's accused. He's also accused of bombing and killing the former chief minister of Balochistan. He's also charged with treason, but he's not appearing in any of these cases.
Exile in Dubai, but I just have to put it on the record, as I said, that he denies all of that. He's not. He says not a murderer, not a dictator. But
not a dictator.
Yeah, that's
that
what
also
I'm
just saying.
Just saying. But anyway, let's move on to the fact about the
this is a new alternative fact.
No, just putting out what he would say. But But I want to ask you this though, Bilawal Bhutto Zardari. Your father became president soon after your mother's death in 2008. Because he was co-chair of the PPP. And if the investigation was to proceed smoothly, if there was to be no cover-up, he could have done something about that, because he was president.
That's why.
But why didn't he?
But he did. And as president of Pakistan, for the first time in our history, our country went all the way to the United Nations for an investigation.
Sure.
Now, the case that we have against the accused is very strong.
Can I just tell you what that you mentioned the UN Commission, which your father asked.
No, not only the UN Commission, right? Because that's not there's an investigation and a case against. Your own investigation in the BBC has said that it's a very strong case. It points to the fact that DNA evidence has been ignored. That's a very serious accusation.
On the UN...
In the same case, after our government completed its term, the chief prosecutor was assassinated In this case of my mother, we had a very strong case against Mr. Musharraf. The judges, 7 judges, changed hands in this case. A case that should have been decided according to the law within 2 weeks took 10 years.
Absolutely.
And that, too, is a travesty of justice. We haven't got...
You haven't got justice yet for your mother. I understand that. But the UN Commission President, Geraldo Munoz, says there were many people in the establishment that we wanted to interview, but they refused. But he also said some of the obstacles were not from the military, but from government ministers, too. And he said the UN team security and safe house was withdrawn.
Your
father was president at the time.
I don't want to get into how the...
But these government ministers were also PPP
Yeah, the government ministers... Let me please explain. Absolutely. I'm not trying to deny that. They were ministers of the government, and if they failed to produce people, that is our failing, that we failed to produce the individuals that they wanted to produce. But the report also mentions the fact that they did not get access to these certain individuals, did not undermine their ability to produce the report.
All right.
So it had no consequences on the credibility of the report, on the accusations in the report, which directly accuse my mother's security of being sabotaged as a result of the police being sent away that was supposed to blockade...
Oh, you've made that clear. We've dealt with Pervez Musharraf and the allegations you put against him and what his response would be. But let's moving on to the state of affairs with the Pakistan People's Party, the party founded by your grandfather. He was executed in 1979 by the military rule there under martial law.
So we have a history of military dictators assassinating, so they can keep denying.
That's
but
what you're saying.
It's on the record.
All right, but just looking at the political aspects of this, is it fair to say that the PPP is run like a personal fiefdom of the Bhutto family?
It's accusation dynastic politics is a reality in South Asia. All political parties in Pakistan rely on dynastic politics to a certain degree. I'm not going to debate the merits or demerits of that, because any modern society will want to promote a meritocratic system. But in the Pakistan People's Party is the only party that didn't choose to pursue that path of dynastic politics by choice. My grandfather wasn't assassinated. If my mother wasn't assassinated, my grandfather would be the one doing politics. My mother would be in the Foreign Office and I'd still be a student. Every other political party that relies on dynastic politics in Pakistan have not suffered assassination, but still brothers, sisters, etc. are in the show.
Right, so that's what you say on the dynastic argument.
And I also told you that 3 days after my mother's assassination, when we just buried the body, the Central Executive Committee of the party asked me. It's not something I could have refused. I was asked, I stood up and did what I have to do. And with time I will have to prove myself. And my party is the ones who get to decide who lead them. The party gets to decide, and they obviously felt that they trust me the most to continue my mother's mission.
All right. An editorial on the German TV station Deutsche Welle's website in October 2016 said many people in Pakistan say Bilawal's future in Pakistani politics is bleak because Benazir Bhutto's PPP does not exist anymore. It died with her in 2007.
Obviously, the assassination of my mother, Shaheed Mohtarma Benazir Bhutto, did not only leave a huge vacuum within the Pakistan People's Party, but also in the body politics of Pakistan. And not only her assassination, but the climate in our politics in the moment in Pakistan. It's filled with extremism, partisanship, and a hate-driven politics that I refuse to engage in. Perhaps in the short term...
What's going on in the PPP that it's referring to? Let me tell you something else that this website said. It quotes Nahid Khan, who was one of Benazir Bhutto's closest aides, and she fell out with your father when he became president and became co-chair of the party.
She'd actually fallen out with my mother before she was assassinated.
Okay, well, let me tell you what she said. The present PPP leadership is only interested in power. They have abandoned the PPP ideology. You know, she's saying you've forgotten your roots of the slogan of food, shelter, clothing, you know, democracy, Islam and economic socialism was very much the mantra of the PPP, and that it's lost its roots.
I would disagree with her, obviously. She is an opponent, she runs against us in the elections, and she has her right to criticize. The Pakistan People's Party is very much committed to the same ideals. I know I'm committed, they're my mother's ideals, and I will fight for them, I will die for them, and I show it on a daily basis. Well, she ignores issues that face the people of Pakistan, from extremism to poverty to financial chaos. The Pakistan People's Party and myself continue to advocate for these principles. We're not in government today. We are in opposition, but we're doing what we can from the opposition's perspective.
Well, I mean, your father is arguably still playing an important role in the party. And the American Pakistani journalist Hassan Mujtaba says Bilawal's political career has been scripted by his father and members of his team. He could revive his mother's party if he breaks free from his father's influence and takes charge of the PPP. Bilawal, who is in control of the PPP, you or your father?
See, in democratic parties, you work together and you make decisions through consensus. Myself and my father don't dictate decisions. We have a central executive committee of the party that makes party policy, that decides party policy, and we implement that policy. As far as my political career is concerned, I'm in no rush and I'm not worried. I'm 29 years old and I'm in this for the long haul. Pakistan.
So are you in control of the party, or is your father in control of the party, or do you work together?
We work together. We absolutely work together. But Pakistan and the Pakistan People's Party faces a lot of challenges. These challenges aren't going to be defeated in a single day. You have to be committed for the long haul.
One of your challenges is that your popularity has really plummeted as a party. In the elections, the last elections in 2013, you won 47 seats, and the ruling party, the PMLN, Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, has got 189 seats. Even in a by-election in Lahore, where your party was born recently, the party just had a fraction of votes. And part of the problem is that the PPP is being seen as mired in corruption. The masses feel that. The opposition politician Imran Khan has called your father the biggest illness of Sindh province, and he talks about Asif Ali Zardari's wealth has skyrocketed. And it's these kind of allegations swirling around your party.
Let me address the three different things you brought up. First is the 2013 general elections. Let me allow myself to contextualize what happened in the 2013 general elections. The Taliban, the terrorists, had called out the Pakistan People's Party and said, we will not allow them to campaign. We will attack them. My candidates were kidnapped. The Prime Minister's son was kidnapped. The former governor's son was kidnapped. They also took other political parties' names. They took Imran Khan's PTI, Muslim League Nawaz, and Jamaat-e-Islami. In their case, they said these are our allies. They will have a free hand and they can run. On top of that, the Pakistan People's Party was the first government to complete a civilian term and conduct a peaceful transfer of power. We went against a whole host of anti-democratic interests within Pakistan to reform and pass the 18th Amendment. We were not allowed to campaign. The political chief justice at the time, who has now gone on to form his own political party, stopped my father from campaigning.
But even, even in the by-elections September a few months ago, you only got a handful of votes.
Excuse me,
that's your stronghold.
That's not my stronghold. I'm getting there. I'm getting there, please, if you please. So that was the 2013 elections. You weren't allowed to campaign. You show me how, whether it's any American president, any British party, if their leadership is not allowed to campaign, they're under attack from terrorists, and everybody else is given a free hand, there are going to be consequences to that.
Polls still show consistently that the PMLN, National Gallup poll shows that your vote is not as high as the ruling party.
As far as the by-elections are concerned, you refer to an older by-election. The last by-election that took place on the border of South Punjab and Sindh was the Ghotki by-election. In that by-election, we won by a lead of 12,000 points.
What about the corruption allegations?
I'm so glad you brought me on to that, because this political victimization has gone on throughout my mother's and father's political life. There were umpteen cases brought against them. My father spent 11.5 years in prison without a conviction. Each and every single case brought against my parents, it took us 30 years, we fought it out. Each and every single case, they have been acquitted. After that, that was when my father didn't enjoy power. It was after that that he became the most powerful civilian president in Pakistan's history. For those 5-year term, Mr. Khan has made accusations and lies. Not a single case has been brought against my father.
I'm sure Imran Khan would say that he doesn't tell lies.
Of course he would say that, but he does. It's on the record.
All right, putting that out there. So looking then now, here you are, chairman of the PPP. You've got these elections in July for the National Assembly. You want to do well yourself. Voters want you to address those basic development issues I talked about: food, shelter, clothing, education, health, and all the rest of it. Is that the key plank now of your campaign platform?
I'm so glad you asked me that, because that's exactly what my slogan is for the next general election. It's Roti Kapra and Makan, Ilm Sehat Sabko Makal, which means food, clothing and shelter, education, health and jobs for all. The Pakistan People's Party is focused
bread
on the
and butter issues. You're focused on that.
Bread and butter.
So you're seen as, obviously, you're a young man, as seen as very progressive in your thinking on women's rights, on, you know, minorities' rights and so on. You've got some rather eye-catching policies as well on foreign policy, for instance. You believe in military action against the Taliban in Pakistan. I mean, is that a good idea? Do you think when you see that neighbouring Afghanistan, Ashraf Ghani there is saying, well, you know, we may need to negotiate with some elements of the Taliban, you're deliberately taking a very different tack there?
Absolutely. I feel that actually Pakistan has been solely focusing on the military component against extremism. And it needs to be a broader approach. We absolutely have to, you know, people who challenge our state, who take up arms against the state, we have to challenge them militarily. But we need a holistic, overall approach that doesn't only focus on terrorism, but also focuses on countering extremism, which would require, education reform, curriculum reform, police reform, judicial reform, and providing economic opportunity, equal economic opportunity. And this is the overall comprehensive package that I believe the Pakistan People's Party can lead and provide, whereas the current government has been led by behind. They've only been reacting to events and haven't been leading on the issue of extremism and terrorism, which was the #1 most fundamental threat to Pakistan's existence.
Touching on Kashmir very quickly, you said, I'll take back Kashmir, all of it, and not leave behind a single inch of it, because, like other provinces, it belongs to Pakistan.
It wasn't... I want to clarify. I was talking in a political context, so winning elections, but I'm going to speak about the Kashmir issue nonetheless. It wasn't a Pakistani Prime Minister. It was the PM of India who took the Kashmir issue to the United Nations Security Council, which calls for a plebiscite. It's not the Pakistani constitution alone, it's the Indian constitution that says Kashmir is gives us a special designation as a result of its disputed territory. Unfortunately, India refuses to talk about Kashmir.
You're going to be at loggerheads with India, though,
I'm not going to be loggerheads. My point is that we can't ignore the United Nations. We can't continue to close our eyes to what's happening in Kashmir. It's the age of social media. We can't hide the young generation of Kashmiris are coming out in the streets protesting for their rights, and they're being attacked with pellet guns and human rights atrocities. The people of Kashmir is screaming that the butcher of Gujarat has become the butcher of Kashmir, and the world international community is turning a blind eye. We have to engage on issues. I want peace with India, but in order to accomplish that, we can't ignore the elephants in the room.
So, we were talking about you entering politics. You said you felt you had to do what you're doing now. I mean, do you feel that it's a burden on you?
Look, there's no greater pride in a son's life to feel that he is working towards accomplishing his mother's unfulfilled mission. That is what motivates me, that's what drives me. Of course it's challenging. Pakistan is one of the most difficult countries on the planet to do politics. My entire family has been assassinated. Workers and leaders of my party get assassinated.
You're worried about your own safety? I have a lot of security, and I feel secure. But the fact of the matter is that I feel passionately that the people of Pakistan deserve equal opportunity. They deserve a progressive country where, regardless of whether you're rich or poor, male or female, Muslim or non-Muslim, you have equal rights and equal opportunities. And after having Prime Minister?
My aim is to achieve my ideology and my goals. That is my motivation. It is not a desire or a simple desire to become Prime Minister of Pakistan.
Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, thank you very much indeed for coming on Hard Talk.
Thank you so much for having me, Zain. It's such a pleasure.